Hello, welcome to our presentation. My name is Deniz Deliormanlı. Our topic is the teacher's social and emotional learning. Also, our topic will be how teachers are affected by their profession and how they are affected mentally and physically. As you know, however much the teaching profession is taken lightly by society, this is far from reality. Those who are in the field will know the job, and we, as teacher candidates that's going to internship, observe and experience this very well. The teaching profession, as in every other profession, affects and harms the individual doing the profession in a negative way. At the beginning of these problems, mental health deterioration and burnout syndrome can come. Now we have a video. In this video, the speaker brings us a different perspective by presenting an example he has encountered in his life. So let's watch together.
Researcher. I have been in the field of education for almost 30 years now. I was drawn into the field because I thought it was a place where I could make a difference. And I have worked in education as a researcher at NYU and other universities. I have been a teacher, a classroom teacher in Providence, Rhode Island, and Oakland, California. I have been a school board member in Berkeley, California. I often call it my sentence on the school board in Berkeley, where I learned about making policy at the local level. And I am a parent of 5 children, which I regard as the most challenging job of all. But in all of my experiences, I keep coming back to the question, why is it that educating children in America has become so hard? And the longer I think about it, the longer I work at it, the more I realize we have made this much more difficult than it should be. And much of the problem lies not in the children, because we have lots of evidence that we know how to educate all types of children, children with disabilities, children with all kinds of challenges. The problem is the way we treat the children. The problem is the kinds of schools we've created, and more importantly, the kinds of policies we've relied upon to drive education in this country. And we have lots and lots of evidence that what we've been doing as a nation isn't working. We have the international comparisons that show we keep falling further and further behind. Last time we checked, we were behind Slovenia, which really got the Congress mad because most of them didn't know Slovenia was a country. We have dropout rates of 50% and higher in almost every major city, with a policy called No Child Left Behind, clearly leaving many, many children behind. And so as I think about it, what's wrong is that we have relied on the wrong kinds of questions to drive our policy. We've been asking how to raise achievement when what we should be asking is how to get kids excited about learning. We've been asking how do we hold teachers accountable when what we should be asking is how do we hold everyone accountable? Parents, students, politicians, everyone accountable for educating our children. And we've been focused on closing the achievement gap and asking what it will take to close the gap. And what we should be asking is, how do we create schools where a child's race or class does not predict how well they will do? If you ask different questions, you come out with different answers. But the wrong questions have been driving our policy. And I would add that we've been using fear and using testing as a weapon against children and against schools. We've operated on the assumption that you can pressure schools into improving and use humiliation as a strategy to get schools to get better, and we have no evidence whatsoever that this works. The truth is that it's not as hard as it seems, and I can cite several schools throughout the country, schools in affluent communities, in poor communities, schools that serve recent immigrants, schools that serve homeless children that succeed. Succeed not only in educating them, but getting them excited to learn and addressing their whole needs, including their emotional and their social and psychological needs. At the core of what makes some schools succeed when so many others don't, and let's be clear, in many schools, the number one complaint our kids have about school is that it's boring. What separates the others from those is the relationships. The strong relationships between the educators and the children that make learning possible, that result in students who are engaged and motivated to learn and make it appear easy. To illustrate that point, I want to describe a school I worked with in Oakland, California. It's a school, troubled history, continues to be a troubled school. And so it had relied on Teach for America recruits to come and staff the school. And one of those teachers came to me one day and says, Pedro, I need some help. I'm having trouble with classroom management. And she fit the typical profile of a Teach for America teacher. She was young, she was bright, she was extremely committed, and she was overwhelmed. Overwhelmed because they'd assigned her to teach a very, very difficult class. So I go to sit in her class, and it's chaos. Kids are screaming, she's screaming. It's painful to sit through the class. At the end of the period, I say, well, this is hard, this is terrible. She says, I know, I can't take it. I have a migraine, I'm about to leave, I'm about to quit. I can't take this anymore. I say, don't quit, let's go see the principal. And let's talk to the principal about what's happening in your class. And together we go see the principal, and he listens as she describes what's happening in the classroom, and he says, you're a professional, deal with it. And then I speak up. I say, listen, if you don't help her, she's gonna quit. And if she quits, you'll have to get a substitute for the rest of the year. He says, okay, I don't want that. He says, I have an idea. We have a veteran teacher who's just retired. She's very good with kids. I'm going to ask her to take over your classroom for 2 days. I can only afford 2 days, but I want you to watch her and see if you can learn some things. So both the new teacher and I said, well, let's see what the veteran teacher can show us. And the next day, the veteran shows up, and there's something about her walk, something about the look she gives, but the kids can tell almost right away that the real thing is here. And so the classroom that had been out of control is suddenly on task. It's a math class. She's teaching. Kids are working. No disturbances. Both the new teacher and I are kind of shocked. We can't believe it's been that dramatic. But at one point during the lesson, she hears two girls talking. So she stops what she's doing, and she says, young lady, when I'm speaking, I want you to be quiet. She turns to go right on the board, and under her breath, the girl says, bitch. But it wasn't a direct bitch. It was an indirect. It was way down here. Bitch. You could have thought it was a fart or a sneeze or something else. You could let it slide, but this is a veteran teacher. She's not going to let it slide. She says, young lady, do I look like your mother? And the whole class says, whoa. And the girl immediately says, no, you don't look like my mother. She says, well, whenever you speak to me, I want you to think of your mother. And with that, she goes back to the lesson. Girl goes back to work. Class does not miss a beat. New teacher turns to me and says, how did she know that that would work? So I said, well, let's talk to her afterwards. And the first thing she said, well, first of all, I could not let this slide because this is a test. If I let this slide, bitches are coming out all over now. Because the kids know that I'm not really in control of this classroom. She said, the second thing I know is I can't escalate this situation. I can't say, your mama's a bitch. Because if I go there, now the girl's got to respond. She said, I also can't ask for help. If I get on the phone and say, call a dean, they're cursing at me in the classroom, they're going to say one little bitch ran her off. I said, no. What does this veteran teacher do? She calls her attention to a higher authority. She said, you're going to speak to me the way you would your mother. And then what she understands is ultimately the key to keeping this classroom in order is to actually teach them, to keep them focused on the math. Because when students are intellectually engaged, they're much less likely to disrupt. Now, I can describe classrooms like that throughout the country. And sometimes, even in the most dysfunctional schools, such classrooms exist. My question to policymakers right now is, why aren't we learning from these kinds of educators? We live in a country where those who know the most about education have the least say, and those who know the least have the most say. What qualifies you to make policy is the fact that you once went to school, and we suffer the consequences. The future of this country will be determined to a large degree by what happens in our schools. We have a lot at stake. And whether or not you have children in schools now or plan to have them in the future, and whether or not you will rely on your own public schools, all of us have a vested stake in what happens there. Thank you.
So that was our video. As you can see, we listened to what was told about a teacher who was tired of his or her profession in the video. Sorry. From here, we say how serious the professional deformations caused by teaching can reach. We can briefly deduce the following from this issue. In addition to professional competence, teaching is a sustainable field of duty with tolerance, patience, self-sacrifice, and love respect for the profession. While high sensitivity, compassion, determination, and continuity to learn are of great importance in teacher-student dynamics. The mood of the teacher who struggles with the feeling of burnout is among the factors that affect the classroom environment in the first degree. For this reason, the continuation of the teacher's peaceful and positive feeling will affect his transfer skill and comfortable learning of the students he will train. And in addition to these, there are other factors that can cause deformation of teachers. We can divide them into three as local, regional, and global factors. So if we look at the local factors, commuting, disconnections in parents, students, and teacher relations, and the difference, indifference of the family to the education of the student, and the feeling that the teacher does not get paid for their efforts, etc. So when we look at the regional factors, the lack of adequate financial support to educational institutions, faulty education policies that assume the education process consists of only teachers and students, constantly changing education systems, and etc. And finally, if we look at the global factors, it can be listed as the lack of adequate and appropriate education opportunities and security threats caused by wars and conflicts, gender discrimination, and exposure to discrimination because of being one of the disadvantaged groups. That was my part. Thank you. Sheref will take over.
Hello, people. My name is Sheref. I'm going to take over the presentation now, and my part will start with the challenges in the teaching profession. Now, as is the case with every other profession, teaching comes with a set of its own unique challenges and issues. A good teacher would have the courage to overcome all these challenges bravely, regardless. But addressing these common teaching profession challenges not only helps improve the teacher retention rate, but also enhances the success rates of students and the ultimate quality of the education being given. Now, as you can see in the presentation, we have some of these challenges listed, and I'm going to go through them one by one. Our first challenge is the lack of time for planning. Now, this situation is more challenging today than it was yesterday because in our time, teachers have to fulfill multiple roles in the classroom. They have to attend to multiple duties. These duties include updating the subject to new demands, the demands of the time, correcting materials, content presentations, managing trips, as well as bringing a new creative approach to meet the our time's educational needs. As a result, between all these duties, the teacher does not get to have the luxury of having much time for planning. They can plan the lesson, the flow of the course as they would like to. Our second challenge is handling too many masters. Now, who are these masters and what do I mean by that? These masters can be the administration of the school, the parents of the students, and even the students themselves. Satisfying all of these masters in the same degree can be a serious challenge for them, the teachers. For example, management that is not supportive, a class of students who is now, into the work, parents who are complaining without even, understanding the educational stuff can make the job very tough for them. Things get even worse when there is a argument between these masters, like the teacher might have to make a decision between, keeping their job or being fair among these masters, etc. The third challenge is balancing diverse learner needs. Now, let it be any school, the type of students in a classroom will be different and they will have diverse learning needs. Teachers, teachers have to be, eager to come up with creative ways of providing all of the needs of these students while staying true to a particular curriculum will be a hard challenge. And nowadays, the teachers are trying to, skip between different teaching strategies to satisfy the needs of a slow learner and a quick learner at the same time. This forces the teacher to bring in a lot of creativity and diverse strategies, which in turn require additional preparation time and tires them. 4, limitations of standardized testing. Now, as I said in my previous point, not every student has same needs of education, and hence they might require different techniques. This is true for not also giving them an education, but also assessing them with a fair way. Like what works for one student does not work for others, and teachers are being forced to look for different newer ways to analyze and evaluate different skill levels. For example, not limited, media enhanced exams, newer question types, etc. are some of the changes the teachers are looking for, but an administration that forces them to use a certain way of assessment could lead them into, being frustrated and having a low job satisfaction overall. Changing educational trends. Now, this is very relatable for many of us here too. Like we are being forced to adopt our ways, we have been given a different kind of education, and now we are being taught to give a whole different kind of education to our students in the future. This, being faced with this many new techniques could and does make the teacher, fall behind of their time, fall behind of the current trends. They might not be able to give the same effort to each and every new thing that pops up to, train themselves to be a better teacher. And this could result in an inconsistency in their teaching styles, which again also might lead to frustration and a low job satisfaction. Differentiating and personalizing teaching. As I've said before, what works for one student does not work for the other. Teachers know that, and they again look for newer ways to analyze and evaluate different skill levels. There's a simple option. There's a simple solution to that. It is the most optimal solution, to say at the very least. This is like keeping it simple while diversifying as much as possible to make the learning fit the personality of the students. But this is very hard to execute. This is like a very thin balance. Like this is a very thin line. You should not cross it one way or another, or you fail like certain, it's a certain field. And protecting this balance takes a lot. It requires a lot from the teacher. And lastly, getting students to work outside the class. Learning does not take place in classroom alone. We all know that. It should be extended beyond the classroom. Like what students are learning from schools is just a mere fraction of their academics. Teachers have the added pressure of having students to put in extra effort of making the learning process outside the class. This takes a whole new different of dedication from the teachers, and hence in return tires them out. Now, can we skip the, go to the next part, please? Now, while the challenges of being teacher is numerous, as I listed them all, some of them, there are some suggestions to, prevent or at least help us get over most of these challenges. Now, first of which is these suggestions. Can we again go forward? Thank you. Furniture of the classroom. The classroom needs to be optimized in order for it to be an optimal learning environment. Even the furniture, especially the furniture that is present in the classroom, is absolutely vital for the students and maximizing their learning. Let's give an example. Like a class of young learners will and do need their own like specially made desks, specially made chairs for them. You cannot just expect them to sit on chairs and desks made for adults or middle schoolers. They will be distracted. They need to be comfy. They need to be feel safe in the classroom environment. This is where the furniture is very important. Can we go again? The next one. Okay. Promoting harmony in your students, among your students. Now, in the line of teaching, we will undoubtedly come across students who are very aggressive. They will try to provoke their classmates, by continuously arguing with them, poking at them, messing with them in various ways, even etc. Even so, we have to remember that it is our duty and responsibility to hold our ground in order to pacify the, for example, an heated argument, and turn it into a possible opportunity of giving a lecture, like giving the children a life lesson, for example. We have to be calm, even when we are, losing our patience, even when we cannot get anymore. Good teachers take such chaotic events and turn them into opportunities for further learning. Next slide, please. We may also find that there are particular students who have a habit of taking over the entire classroom and making sure that their voice is the only voice that is being heard. While being proactive is fine and dandy, it should not and cannot be at the expense of other students. The classroom needs to be a friend environment where all students feel comfortable and welcome to participate. We have to be able to provide this. All of the students that, all students should be able to express themselves without the fear of any repercussions and learn. We should actively make it a point to make sure that everyone in the class is taking part in the discussion, but it is important to do this without not targeting the talkative students. We should not antagonize the active students. The next slide, please. Okay. Having to deal with so many and so effort-intensive problems could take a toll on the body in different ways. Throughout their careers, teachers are exposed to and shaped by many and various challenges they are being made to face due to the nature of their profession. But having to bear the burden of these challenges could result in the teacher experiencing mild to serious degrees of indispositions, biggest of which is stress, which is our next subject. Now, stress under normal circumstances, that is a very beneficial response given by our bodies when we meet the kind of troubles that require extra attention in overcoming them. These troubles can be anything from the challenges of our daily lives to a simple episode of flu. Stress urges our internal systems to get ready for a fight and brace against what is oncoming. It boosts our immune system, it triggers our fight or flight reflex, and gives us that mental provision we would need to take action. The problem with stress starts when the long-term exposure and its adverse effects are emerging. Stress is like an acid. It can help getting the rust off our bodies, but extended exposure can cause an eroding of the good material too. Now, I would like to show you all a comprehensive video about the causes, the nature of the stress, and this is followed by how we can handle our stress. My friend will open the video shortly.
Cramming for a test? Trying to get more done than you have time to do? Stress is a feeling we all experience when we are challenged or overwhelmed. But more than just an emotion, stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout your entire body. In the short term, stress can be advantageous, but when activated too often or too long, your primitive fight or flight stress response not only changes your brain, but also damages many of the other organs and cells throughout your body. Your adrenal gland releases the stress hormones cortisol, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine. As these hormones travel through your bloodstream, they easily reach your blood vessels and heart. Adrenaline causes your heart to beat faster and raises your blood pressure, over time causing hypertension. Cortisol can also cause the endothelium, or inner lining of blood vessels, to not function normally. Scientists now know that this is an early step in triggering the process of atherosclerosis, or cholesterol plaque buildup in your arteries. Together, these changes increase your chances of a heart attack or stroke. When your brain senses stress, it activates your autonomic nervous system. Through this network of nerve connections, your big brain communicates stress to your enteric or intestinal nervous system. Besides causing butterflies in your stomach, this brain-gut connection can disturb the natural rhythmic contractions that move food through your gut, leading to irritable bowel syndrome, and can increase your gut's sensitivity to acid, making you more likely to feel heartburn. Via the gut's nervous system, stress can also change the composition and function of your gut bacteria, which may affect your digestive and overall health. Speaking of digestion, does chronic stress affect your waistline? Well, yes. Cortisol can increase your appetite. It tells your body to replenish your energy stores with energy-dense foods and carbs, causing you to crave comfort foods. High levels of cortisol can also cause you to put on those extra calories as visceral or deep belly fat. This type of fat doesn't just make it harder to button your pants. It is an organ that actively releases hormones and immune system chemicals called cytokines that can increase your risk of developing chronic diseases, such as heart disease and insulin resistance. Meanwhile, stress hormones affect immune cells in a variety of ways. Initially, they help prepare to fight invaders and heal after injury. But chronic stress can dampen the function of some immune cells, make you more susceptible to infections, and slow the rate you heal. Want to live a long life? You may have to curb your chronic stress. That's because it has even been associated with shortened telomeres, the shoelace tip ends of chromosomes that measure a cell's age. Telomeres cap chromosomes to allow DNA to get copied every time a cell divides without damaging the cell's genetic code. And they shorten with each cell division. When telomeres become too short, a cell can no longer divide, and it dies. As if all that weren't enough, chronic stress has even more ways it can sabotage your health, including acne, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, headaches, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and irritability. So, what does all this mean for you? Your life will always be filled with stressful situations, but what matters to your brain and entire body is how you respond to that stress. If you can view those situations as challenges you can control and master, rather than as threats that are insurmountable, you will perform better in the short run and stay healthy in the long run.
And that concludes our presentation. As stated in the video, I stated in the presentation, being a teacher comes with various challenges, and we have to learn how to handle these challenges and the effects these challenges could have on our bodies. This is very important to us, especially as we are future teachers, we are teacher candidates. Thank you for listening, and that's the end.
Thank you for listening.